Everyone has heard the classic 8th grade love story. Girl meets boy, they fall in love, and they think they'll be together forever. But then the inevitable breakup occurs, and at least one of the parties falls into a pit of despair. I need him. He's all I've ever needed. Really? Does she actually need him? This particular girl happens to have a mommy and daddy who gave her everything she ever wanted. So when she doesn't get one thing, it suddenly becomes a need. Another example of someone who tends to confuse their desires with necessities would be a businessman who simply needs to make a 7-figure income. Hypothetically, let's say Mr. Million is indeed a narcissist. Wants are often mistaken for needs because of a mindset many individuals find themselves in. They prioritize what's directly in front of them instead of viewing the world through the perspectives of those surrounding them. This realization dawned on me when I lost my dad. He committed suicide. In his eyes, there was no hope, and he needed life to be over. So he chose to disregard how the rest of us would be affected. And although this is an extreme example, the narrow-mindedness that is demonstrated is far too prevalent in today's world. The main goal of all people should be to better their society as a whole, as well as their individual lives, by learning to differentiate between wants and needs. So today, we will analyze the difference between the two, who is most likely to experience this confusion, and how we as individuals can make decisions to eradicate this problematic behavior. So, what is the technical difference between a need and a want? According to the article Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs and Why It Still Matters in 2020, needs can be broken down into 5 categories: self-actualization, love, esteem, safety, and physiology. Though each tier of the hierarchy is important, the two most crucial are esteem and physiology. Esteem touches on the belief that one needs respect from themselves as well as others in order to feel comfortable in their own skin. Physiological necessities are the most basic of basic: air, sleep, water, food, and shelter. Though this is just a theory, Maslow's definitions are very similar to that of the dictionary. Merriam-Webster defines a want as a need as a physiological or psychological requirement for the well-being of an organism. However, when one searches want, the first definition that pops up is to be destitute or needy. So, in need and needy don't mean the same thing? Let's delve deep into the confusion and figure out why it doesn't just stop at terminology. So, first let's examine those who are told their wants are needs. According to Psychology Today in 2019, a spoiled child can be identified as one who is unwilling to align their desires with the ordinary demands that come with being a member of a family. To clarify, they tend to put their wants above the needs of the rest. Allow me to refer back to the scenario I was painting earlier. The girl who lost the love of her life 8th grade year. Those of us who are given what we want in our early development without question tend to expect the same as we grow older. Timothy Van Dusen, an associate professor of adult and child psychiatry at Yale University, states that overindulgence in children can often lead them to become entitled adults that almost always tarnish their personal connections with others. He's quoted as saying, "They find it hard to get into relationships because they have a sense of grandiosity. No one is ever going to be smart enough or good-looking enough." So basically, that girl could have been getting hot and heavy with Brad Pitt and still not been satisfied. But it doesn't just stop at romantic relationships. Carol Passmore is a counselor and director of a family therapy center known as Care to Connect in Fairfield, Ohio. Passmore states that overindulgence in children can stunt the growth of abilities that are necessary to lead an optimal life. She is quoted as saying, "Parents are paying for their adult child's rent, car insurance, and other expenses, and their overindulged kids can't feel good about themselves because they need to be independent, but haven't learned the skills. Spoiling children in adolescence leads to lifelong dependence." Moving right along, we must next analyze the tendencies of people who have developed the habits for themselves. Medscape.org states that only 15% of people who seek help for their mental instabilities are narcissistic. It is one of the most uncommon disorders, with only about 0.5% of the United States populace actually being diagnosed. So let me preface by saying, the treatments that will be discussed will not be targeted directly at people with narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Instead, it will be focusing on people who merely suffer from the tendencies or habits that are associated with the disorder. Encyclopedia Britannica defines narcissism as pathological self-absorption. Similar to depressive episodes, narcissism extracts the importance out of things that truly matter, but not nearly in the same way. While depression drains a person of motivation at all, narcissism simply only provides it for self-serving. They only care about how they will be affected by their decisions, which in turn limits significance in their lives. The only things that matter are those that involve them. Decaholic.org explains how narcissists demand attention from everyone else because they just believe they're better. To them, that's what they deserve. The businessman that I told you about earlier thinks that he needs the salary he desires because in his mind, he has earned nothing less than the power and prowess that comes with having a multi-million-dollar income. According to the narcissistlife.org, people who suffer with NPD often use money as a way to feel like they have an advantage over other people. This leads to an abundance of greed and a lack of awareness in our society. So we've discussed two figures who are the roots of this misunderstanding. Next, we must analyze how we can at least partially resolve these specific issues. As stated by CT Post, overindulgence in children comes in all shapes and sizes. It isn't just buying your child every toy they may want. It's fighting their battles for them, doing their homework, feeding into mood swings, arguing with coaches or administrators when one's child is clearly in the wrong. All are examples of how adults can spoil their children. Georgina Manning is a director of an organization known as Wellbeing for Kids, which is based in Melbourne. Manning states that Manning teaches families how to achieve proper communication and emotional outcomes at home. And she states that saying no is often one of the best things a parent can do for their child. It not only teaches them how to accept disappointment from a young age, but it also encourages independence and gives them the ability to better differentiate between things they just wish they had and things they truly need. These skills will stick with them throughout life and help them better mature and develop into adulthood. Now, narcissism is a bit harder to diffuse, but not quite impossible. Craig Malkin, PhD and author of Rethinking Narcissism, believes that once someone is diagnosed with NPD, they often associate it with permanence, and they begin to lose hope. However, Malkin also thinks that people's personalities are mainly shaped by their environment. People have learned to project, deny, ignore, and disavow their vulnerabilities in their attempts to shape and reshape who they are in their interactions. So basically, Malkin is saying that reshaping one's personality is the first step to attacking narcissism at the source. Alice Boyce, PhD and author of the Healthy Mind Toolkit, gives tips and tricks to treating narcissism in an article published through Psychology Today titled 5 Ways to Dial Down Narcissism. One of these pieces of advice is known as the 3 perspectives technique. Boyce states that people need to not only look at situations through their own eyes or through the eyes of the other people involved, but also through a neutral third party. Though this party is completely hypothetical, it will help to tremendously increase the person's awareness of their surroundings, the situation, and other people involved, as well as decreasing their focus on themselves. So today, we not only analyzed figures who have misidentified wants and needs, but we also talked about various ways to correct the issue. Though the plague that is confusing the two is prevalent, it's not hopeless. We need to fight it. And here's why. Our world, our country, our society, all of it is failing in more ways than one. Physically, we are exploiting Mother Earth's resources. Economically, people are impoverished and suffering worldwide. And socially, people are blind. More often than not, we are focused on ourselves, completely oblivious to the beautiful life that is going on around us. We can be the change. We need to dilute the concentration of selfishness in our world. And if we start on a scale as small as personal needs and individual wants, we can turn the tide.